What's on, everyone? Jeremy here from the Quartering. This one gets a little bit deep. We've got two different avenues here of groups that were targeting not only Turning Point USA, which was just revealed by a whistleblower via Kash Patel live on TV, and some deep dive work done by Data Republican, who tied, at least in my opinion, pretty convincingly, a far leftist group to aiding and abetting the taking of Charlie Kirk's life. Strap in. This one gets a little deep. Thankfully for all of you, we all know I talk too dang slow, so you'll be able to get to it. Just make sure you leave a like on the video and make sure you're subscribed or following, and check to make sure you still are, because I'm releasing a lot of videos at various times. I want to start with this. Senator Chuck Grassley announces a whistleblower that has exposed the program Arctic Frost for targeting 92 Republican groups. Charlie Kirk's TPUSA was among them. All records will be made public today. Let's look at this.
Well, it's well understood that your predecessor left you an FBI infected with politics.
Correct.
I'm going to provide examples of that today, including making public new whistleblower records. At your nomination hearing, I made public records that whistleblowers provide me about Arctic Frost. Arctic Frost was the FBI case opened and approved by antitrust Trump FBI agent Thibault. Arctic Frost then became Jack Smith's Electra case against then Citizen Trump and now President Trump. These new records show that Arctic Frost was much broader than just an electoral matter. The case was expanded to Republican organizations. Some examples of the group that Ray FBI sought to place under political investigation included the Republican National Committee, Republican Attorney General's Association, and various Trump political groups. In total, 92 Republican targets, including Republican groups and Republican-linked individuals, were placed under investigative scope of Arctic Frost. On that political list was one of Charlie Kirk's groups, Turning Point USA. In other words, Arctic Frost wasn't just a case to politically investigate Trump.
This guy might talk slower than me. I don't want to hear any complaints.
It was the vehicle by which partisan FBI agents and Department of Justice prosecutors could achieve their partisan ends and improperly investigate the entire Republican political apparatus. So today, Senator Johnson and I are making these records public.
Good.
For the entire country to see, and I hope...
How does Kash not know about that? And by the way, look, here's how Kash needs to respond to this. Don't go on freaking Fox and Friends. Send out a tweet. The agents involved in this have been terminated and are under further investigation for possible crimes. End tweet. That's it. That's all you got to do, my brother. You don't need to go on Fox and Friends and look like a deer in the headlights and be all weird and nervous. Just do that. Okay, TV's not your thing. It's not my thing either.
A lot of people are interested in seeing what government can do when various agencies have a political agenda.
So, whistleblower now says our own FBI was investigating not just Turning Point USA, but 92 different Republican groups. And this is not necessarily surprising to me. You know, Arctic Frost was a hidden FBI investigation, but started back in 2021, 2022, early in the Biden administration. And again, arrest these people, fire these people, or lose my support forever. Pam Bondi's already out. She sucks. I will never trust her. Kash Patel is on the thinnest of ices. Like, the kind of ice that forms on your car in the Midwest when the snow melts on it and it just hits freezing point overnight and you open the door and it's kind of frozen. I realize that 2/3 of the country probably can't relate to this, but extremely thin ice. Then Data Republican posted this. Guys, make sure you share this video. And I know if you have to create an account to subscribe to me or follow, you feel like that can be a pain in the butt, but it helps so much because it's hard to reach people, especially on platforms like YouTube where, you're getting actively suppressed. Major breaking: State Department and UN ties to armed queers SLC leader now confirmed. First, credit to SK Double Dub 33. For a crucial tip, please follow them. They'll be doing a podcast on this soon, which I just did. Armed queers SLC, that's Salt Lake City, is under investigation for possible beforehand knowledge of the Charlie Kirk assassination. Their leader, Amria Finian, I don't really care, was recognized by State Department affiliated NGO, Utah Global Diplomacy, as a recipient of the 7 for 17 award for advancing the UN 17 goals. Utah Global Diplomacy has since scrubbed her presence from their website, unknown when this purge happened. The receipts remain. Patience as I pull this together. So here we have Ermaya. I guess this is probably this chick's name. I don't know. I don't know what kind of name that is. But Ermaya is a trans liberation and feminist political organizer who worked and included organizations around abortion struggle. It seems pretty easy to get them to me. Things like that. This is what pops up when you search for her name in connection to the Utah Global Diplomacy. It has all been scrubbed. You have some previous examples, but if you click on the Google link, it's now been deleted. I wonder why. And yes, she was an organizer of the Armed Queers SLC. You might recognize this, Libs of TikTok, Queers of Resistance, Agitate, Educate, Organize, Armed Queers SLC. This is who people are saying, may be responsible or have participated in the planning of or had prior knowledge to taking Charlie Kirk's life. Now, per the 1990 form, with Utah Global Diplomacy, the nonprofit is a partner with the U.S. State Department to cultivate emerging leaders and diplomacy initiatives. In other words, she was selected to, quote, help shape U.S. foreign relations. In their words, not mine. She was selected as a Utah Global Diplomacy's first 7 for 17 award winning, honoring her work to advance UN sustainable goals and pulling together exact nature work. Now, we know that a lot of this money is dark money. It flies around. They say it's for one thing, but it's really for another thing. We saw a lot of weird stuff happen when the USAID money dried up. That was probably only one of many dark money funnels that the government had to, they give you $1 million, to, work on a new biofuel, but you're really working on a weapon for them or, whatever the case is. This government does this all the time. Utah Global Diplomacy reports receiving most of its income, of course, in government grants. $729,000 in revenue, $445,000 in government grants, another $181,000 in more grants, then progressive services. So they make no money. They completely exist in the government-funded agency world. I managed to pull one of the scrub pages off the Internet Archive and has recognized her work in, quote, gender equality. Let me emphasize, SLC, Armed Queers, is not adjacent to the honor that Amira got from the Utah Global Diplomacy. Utah Global Diplomacy specifically awarded her for her work with trans people, of which SLC Armed Queers is key. This may be why they scrubbed the pages. I find mention of this individual on the UN website, where she was a speaker at an affiliated event, topic LGBTQ and nonprofits. She was also honored as a young diplomat in Utah. I'm trying to trace the exact award, unknown if they get money from the State Department directly or if it's granted through Utah State, but it also seems they've applied for awards at the Utah level. The entire 7 for 17 website now has been scrubbed in real time. Took off all the winners. Very ironically, she also appears to have co-founded the Utah chapter of March of Our Lives. David Hogg, if you're serious about gun control, you might want to kick this person out, who also runs an armed pro-gun group. She specifically works to arm queer and trans communities for, quote, communal militant defense. Here this individual is. Many others have done research on this woman, so I won't do a full biography on her, and we'll close this out for now. Again, we're talking about a woman honored by the State Department, affiliated NGOs, selected as a young diplomat, put forward as a foreign policy leader, while simultaneously running an armed ideological organization at home. None of this is to suggest the State Department had any involvement in the assassination of Charlie Kirk, but this is the type of person who is picked from a young age on to staff the State Department. She is also a Palestinian immigrant and an express communist. Allegedly. I guess Iranian. She's from Iran. She's an immigrant. This is not the radioactive thread I'm promising, still assembling, archiving it, just a bonus. Here's her saying violent riots are sometimes necessary.
What makes the biggest difference for change?
I think that the protests do it more so, actually, because as we've seen, our electoral politics have failed us. Even though the young people significantly came out and voted for Bernie Sanders during the primary, we saw that Bernie Sanders did not end up being the nominee. And so a lot of the times...
Nominee. He cucked you, right? He bought a fourth house. He never had any issues at all running for president. Now there's more. The 2025 May Day trip of SLC armed queers to Cuba. Well, if we're terrorists, we're proud to be them. I've now obtained a now deleted video. In it, Emira and an unidentified man named Connor talk openly about Palestinian students at Cuba's ELAM studying revolution alongside medicine, brigadistas from around the world being brought in for revolutionary orientation, and how every aspect of Cuban society is dedicated to training organizers and are open about their terror label, and to the point where they lament U.S. institutions do not let them speak in the same way. SLC armed, again, Salt Lake City arms queers describe how Palestinian med students in Cuba studied revolution alongside medicine. In the same deleted video, they recount Cuban med students declaring, if we're Terrys, then we're proud to be Terrys, at an official school event. This is essentially a government-funded radicalization of a immigrant to sow discourse, become socialists, communists. What I found shocking was the armed queers' outright admission that Cuba trains Palestinian medical students in revolution, to the point where they describe themselves as Terrys. Of course, the Cuban government is notoriously poor and shouldn't be able to subsidize scholarships, but who gives them the financial aid? Well, Venezuela and Russia subsidize oil for them, but we are also one of their top financial aid providers. This rabbit hole is incredibly deep. This group, the armed queers of Salt Lake City, is extremely suspect because it appears they had prior knowledge. They are government funded. This is very, very odd. Promoting Cuban revolution, all this kind of stuff. She's running a local group, arming trans people. None of this surprises me. I hope that all made sense. I'll continue to report on this as we get more information from the FBI live. What is it called? Not a press conference, but not a trial, but you know what I mean. Kash Patel speaking. Make sure you lock it in here, and we'll talk to you again real soon.